There are some years where there's a John Elway, a Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, and there are other years where there is not. Non-elite prospects get pushed up the board. Quarterbacks who aren't those guys still get taken first overall. This is what's happening with Fernando Mendoza. He is not an all-time generational prospect, yet coming off a Heisman season, a national championship season, despite his lack of elite traits, we know he's going number one. He put up spectacular efficiency numbers his third and final season after transferring to Indiana from Cal Berkeley, and while the numbers are fantastic, I want to note how little he threw the ball per game, just 23 times on average. For comparison, Joe Burrow's Heisman season, he threw the ball 35 times per game. 23 would be lower than anybody in the entire NFL. The Indiana offense was not really put on his shoulders. As we dive deeper into his film a little, we'll start with his positives, then later get into the negatives. I love his toughness. He's shown he can make every throw in the field. He doesn't take sacks, can extend the play with his legs, is pretty accurate to all areas, and has pretty good pre and post snap processing. One of my favorite things is how he'll stand in and take any hit you can possibly imagine. So many college QB prospects are avoiding contact or fading away with pressure in their face. But Fernando is getting hit like a Diddy party, yet still brushes it off and gets up every single time. While I didn't find him to be the most accurate prospect ever, his secret power is his ability to throw back shoulder fades. He's essentially creating another receiver on the field. Back shoulder fades require recognition of the coverage, making sure there's no safety over the top, identifying the leverage of the defender in the down to know that he's too tight to the receiver to win over the top, and pinpoint accuracy throwing to a spot on the field where you know that only your guy can get it even when he's completely covered. Fernando has an amazing highlight reel of these kinds of throws, so even when his receiver doesn't win his route, if all 5 eligibles are covered, he can create essentially a 6 eligible with the back shoulder option. His processing is another one of his best traits. Most of the time, he's reading the defense well before and after the snap. And let me show you what I mean, because this is my favorite rep of his 4 games I charted. Here it's straight man coverage one-on-one, no deep safety, and there are basically 2 options for coverage. You can just stay manned up one-on-one, or you can banjo the 2 receivers, where the first guy takes the first in and the other takes the first out. That's what Jaden Kennedy and Aaron Flowers are signaling here, banjo, and watch the throw. Not only does Fernando see that it's banjo, so he knows he's not going to lead Elijah Surratt into Flowers in the slant, but he knows early enough to throw this back shoulder. A back shoulder quick slant is crazy, and it's an easy touchdown. At least, it appears that way. Fernando's also extremely clutch. His biggest throws often come on the final drive to win big-time games. He had multiple huge big-time throws down the field in this one, where here with a minute 25 left, no timeouts, down 4, Indiana just starts running 4 verticals down the field. The very moment Fernando sees the middle of the field safety dropping to the dead center of the field, he knows it's a 1 high safety coverage. 1 high safety coverage could either be cover 1 man coverage with the safety high, or cover 3 zone with 2 corners in the same safety high, which it is. Fernando knows the seams in cover 3 zone are most vulnerable, because the 2 cornerbacks have to worry about their outside receivers, so the safety is forced to choose which seam to defend. Since Penn State is playing cover 3 sky, the word tells us which defender plays the flat, S for safety, so Fernando has the bottom seam open. If they'd play cover 3 buzz, B is for backer, it might have been a different story, but Fernando reads the safety to the flat and makes an unreal throw into a tight window. My favorite part of this play is how he gets to the top of his drop and does not hitch. Sometimes quarterbacks take a step at the top of their drop, then throw the seam ball, and sometimes this makes the throw too late. Definitely a B here, but Fernando knows this, hits the top of his drop, and puts it right on the money. So now watch, he spikes the ball to stop the clock, remember, no timeouts left. Then the very next play, Penn State showing this 4 deep quarters type look, but rotate into more of a Tampa 2 invert look, where we still have a safety staying deep, but not deep, then another playing a half, and a cornerback playing the other. So Fernando sees his 2 deep Tampa 2 look and punishes the cornerback playing the deep safety role in Tampa 2 zone. Fast forward 2 plays later, and it just keeps getting better and better. Fernando doesn't have the strongest arm, like I said, but he can make every single throw. Again, we have a Tampa 2 zone coverage, where now instead of the cornerback playing safety, both safeties are the 2 deep defenders. Typically, the Tampa 2 defender stays more put in the middle, but watch how he slowly slides over weak to the field side. Fernando sees this, knows again with 4 verticals his seam receiver should bend towards the open middle of the field snug between both safeties, and just look at the window, the throw, the accuracy, it's fantastic. Then we all know the final play, the game winner, where it's one-on-one man coverage cover 0. This means when it's just one-on-one with no deep safety, Fernando knows for a fact he's getting an extra free runner, like unblocked right off the edge. Indiana simply does not have enough bodies to block all these guys, but just look at what Fernando does. And you can see from the tight shot he knows he has at least 1 free rusher, didn't know he'd have 2, fades back a little bit to create enough time, and the throw, mostly the catch, are all time. Now, his downsides, Fernando does have some negatives, reasons why he's not one of these premier elite generational guys. It's not like there was a throw I saw him unable to make, but his arm strength is not elite, so at the next level there will be throws where he can't quite push it to where he wants to consistently, or if he's off platform, he'll struggle with, again, consistency. He's not dynamic with his legs, and while his pre- and post-snap processing are good like we've seen, there are still some flaws that pop up. Pre-snap here, he misses a hot receiver, this is called a cat blitz for when cornerbacks blitz, and because Indiana is sliding everybody away except for the left tackle, Fernando needs to have a pressure plan, something Kurt Warner talks about all the time on Twitter. He needs a pressure plan if anybody else comes off the left, because the tackle can't block both. Basically, Fernando needs to identify who can break his protection, then have a plan pre and very quickly post-snap what he's gonna do. That's why his hot receiver, this built-in quick route from the running back, is perfect, but Fernando doesn't see it before or after the snap and takes a sack in the red zone. While we did see him show great anticipation deep down the field, there were times he struggled in the intermediate and short areas, particularly over the middle. Here we again have this Tampa 2 zone coverage, where while it is late in the down, Fernando fails to anticipate the open space for the curl to the top. I will say the cornerback does a good job of kinda sitting in between playing top down so he defends the curl and flat. This isn't too egregious of an example, but there's an identifiable area where Fernando's guy is running into open space before it happens, but he doesn't pull the trigger. Maybe a little more egregious was once again this Penn State defense running the piss out of Tampa 2 zone, where usually Tampa 2 is a linebacker who's starting closer to the line of scrimmage than sprinting straight backwards. But when he's already lined up deep, Fernando has to figure out if he's going deep with the deep cross or sitting for dagger. We see dagger come open, but Fernando again fails to pull the trigger. The last part of his game I don't love is his inconsistency when reading the leverage of the defender post-snap. Let's say when looking at a curl, you see the defender sitting on the route in good position with his chest towards you. He's probably ready to drive down on the route. He's not fooled vertical. But when the defender has his hips flipped with his chest to one of the sidelines, it's way harder to have your hips flipped, then chomp down and accelerate to defend the curl. It's just not gonna happen. But here and there, Fernando's misreading these in the down indicators, which will cost him in the NFL unless he improves. In my opinion, he is a good quarterback prospect, but nowhere near that Elway, Luck, Caleb range. The talent just isn't there, and he's not without his flaws. What's always challenging about talking about ceiling is the fact that the greatest player of all time didn't have the quote-unquote ceiling coming out of the draft, and he became the GOAT. So while we see a Caleb or Andrew Luck type as those elite ceiling type players, well, Brady with no ceiling ended up with the highest ceiling we will ever see. So what does that say about Fernando's lack of ceiling? I'd like to draft him as my quarterback, but I think what was such a big part of Brady's success was the organizational support, the organizational infrastructure that ownership and the coaching staff gave him. The Raiders simply do not have that. Sure, Fernando would be excellent on those early Patriots teams, throwing 23 times a game and growing into his role over time, to then take over in year 5 and 6 as a true MVP caliber quarterback, just like Brady did. But the Raiders' infrastructure is going to fail him well before any of that happens. We really only see elite talents like Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow become the face of these historically horrible organizations and then turn them around, and Stafford never even won anything there. And in my opinion, Fernando is just not one of those type of guys. He does have talent and does have the ceiling to be a solid quarterback in his rookie year. I think he'll hit the ground running, but it would take a monster of a quarterback to turn around this Raiders organization that has a new coach and a bad roster and decades of failure with terrible ownership. I don't think Fernando or most anybody is that kind of guy to do it. The Raiders should build their roster, then draft a rookie quarterback, but that's just not what bad organizations do. So I hope Fernando and the Raiders prove me wrong, but this looks like it will be ugly.